recording um, app. When you are talking, you're creating assets. And when I say talking, I also mean communicating, right? There's nothing in business that doesn't involve communication with either prospects, potential customers or clients, potential employees, potential partners, your vendors, um, PR, investors. Like every human interaction requires communication, natural language communication. So the whole idea is that if we capture our natural language communication, we can instantly create what I'm calling a content asset or a digital content asset. And then the thing is that if we make that asset or file findable, and with a few tweaks reusable, then we start to get some leverage. Because the thing is that once the digital asset is made findable, then it increases the likelihood that you can reuse it. And when you reuse it, that means not having to start from scratch over and over again. And so I think people who feel passionate about anything, they're always thinking about it. A tennis player, I, I was looking at some old videos of Serena, right? She's always thinking about tennis. Like, just like I'm sitting here at lunch, having my little peanuts, and the ideas whirling around in my head are about like how to remove the friction from content um, production and publishing, or content production and distribution. It's just always on your mind. It's an embedded part of you. You know, you live it, you eat, sleep, and breathe it. You wake up in the middle of the night, it's on your mind. You're taking a shower in the middle of the night, it's part of your mind. When you feel passionate about something, this is what it looks like. This is what passion looks like. And the whole idea is that if we kind of tease out the ideas in our head, communicate them um, in front of the camera or even audio. Some people, maybe they don't do the camera thing, but they can do audio. And then we're creating digital content assets. And so the big idea for me is that like every time I open my mouth, or every time I write something, or I create a quick image or something, like that's a digital content asset. And we need to figure out how to do better data centralization, which is basically putting everything in a centralized library, if you will, or database, so that it can be used over and over again. Because the secret to, as I said, secret to reusability is having something that's findable. Because files that are not findable don't tend to get reused. And so, what I'm realizing is that pretty much all friction happens after you hit the record button. And so the first step, though, is just hitting the record button. Like most people aren't even doing that. Maybe most people might record Zoom conferences, but most people aren't really doing anything with their Zoom conferences, right? And then of the few people who are recording their Zoom conferences, and oh, that logo looks nice. Innovate, innovate, invest, impact. That's Inflectiva. So anyway, I'm just having a little fun. And most people, that you ask the average person, okay, what are you doing with your recorded meetings? They're not doing anything with them. Pretty much the one thing people may be recording are internal calls. These calls are being recorded for quality insurance. Okay, so most small businesses are not recording their calls, and then when they do record them, they're not doing anything with them. They're not repurposing them. They're not using them to create SOPs. It's just so many things that you can do with the content. So my vision is to this year just having it be second nature, that every time I communicate with someone under the right set of circumstances and being mindful of, confidentiality is being recorded. But then once it's recorded, the next step is that the files have to be named properly. If the files are not named properly, then you can't find them. And if you can't find them, you can't reuse it. So they need to be just the data. When I say data, I just mean the files. They have to be named properly. We're talking about metadata. They have to be stored in the right place. They have to be stored in a place that's easy to find them when you need them to reuse them. And then the last step is just reusability. Whenever you go to start something from scratch, instead of starting it from scratch, say, okay, what can we use that we already have? So I think that's the first step. If I were to break out like how to make sure that every time you are communicating, you are creating a digital asset Imagine if, like, just think about this. This is where we are now. Like, imagine every time you talked, you were creating a piece of software. Well, isn't that what like natural language processing is getting us close to? That you can talk uh, to a piece of software, and then you can turn that into you can turn that piece of software. Thank you. Into let me share with you what I'm having for lunch. Thank you, my lover. Look at this.
She got a good.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. This is exactly um, runway food, but damn if it don't taste good. So yeah. So the whole idea is that every time you create something, you imagine if every time you create it, you open your mouth, we're creating a piece of software. Whoa, right? Think about the value and the liquidity, the wealth you created. Imagine if every time I spoke, I said apartment building, right? And poof. Like that's almost like if you want to get spiritual, God said, let there be light. So natural language, right? How do you know somebody's a boss? It's like just by stating it, they make it so, right? So imagine you say, okay, apartment building, car, right? I mean, let your mind roam free. Like that's where we're getting to in terms of 3D design. Car, apartment building, shipping software, right? Um, trading software, song, right? This is where I think a lot of people are really missing the first step in leveraging AI, which is learning how to communicate effectively with the machines. You don't communicate with a machine in the same way that you communicate with. I'm going to say, excuse me for a second. Thank you. I don't think I need any salt, but it's already salty. Thank you, pepper. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, so you have to learn how to communicate, just like you have to learn how to communicate with your employees. You have to learn how to communicate with machines, right? So, as an example, when you little tweaks that can make it easier to label data. I'm just kind of getting a little knee deep in the weeds, but I can say I have some ideas to share with you, right? Or I can say I have 3 ideas to share with you. Number 1, number 2, number 3, right? So I'm making it sequential, and believe it or not, the machines interpret it, but the second way of communicating something far differently than the third way. It's easier to label data, and ultimately cheaper. So I want to say that the whole idea right now is to figure out how to remove the friction between your getting something out of your head, which starts with your talking or maybe writing, right? Those are the two, like our hands and maybe our facial gesture and our mouth are the main ways that we use to communicate. And the whole idea is getting that communication from your mouth, which is the fastest, to writing. Eventually, computers will probably even be able to interpret facial expressions, right? Like, she's happy versus, yeah, communicating with machines and indeed people as quickly as possible, and turning those natural language communications into exact, specific, precise instructions that are used as triggers for workflow, right? And I think the extent to which we can be knowledgeable and aware of the fact that even just knowing your speaking speed, 120 to 150 words per minute, can get you a lot farther over the course of the day than trying to type at 40 or 50 minutes, right? Like if you go from typing, and you don't even type continuously, but if you go from typing at 140 to 150 words a minute to speaking at 120, like you've now 3x your output of instructions. So this is what I feel really excited about, and it was super easy while I was waiting for my delectable Georgian, that's the country, not the continent, cuisine, to share this idea with you. And the thing that I want to have anybody who sees this walk away thinking about the fact that you want to, let's say you want to get to your first 100 hours of digital content assets for 6,000 minutes, right? Divide 6,000. Let's say you just, right now I've been at it for almost 10 minutes, right? It's super easy if you do a lot of reading, if you're actually doing stuff. And so you're talking about what you're doing as opposed to what you're thinking about doing. If you're reading, if you're doing, if you're having real conversations with people, it's super easy to communicate the who, what, when, where, and why of those interactions with the camera to get comfortable in the camera. And there's your 20 minutes a day. Well, if you do the math, 20, where's my phone? I'll do it right now. 20 minutes, let's say there's five, let's say you work quote unquote 5 days a week, all right? So that's about 200 work days a year, all right? Now let's just say you want a month off. So you want to take off. I mean, you want to, let's say public holidays, you take off 1 month. You add up all the public holidays. Let's say there are 20 public holidays a year, and then you take off a whole month. So we've gone from 200 to we take off 20, take off another 20, 160, right? So you want to have a situation where you're recording 160 days a year. So you divide 6,000 by 160, and that's how many. I'm going to do it for you. That's how many minutes a day you want to shoot to invest in recording digital content assets, right? And then eventually, and this is kind of where I'm headed, you want to get in a space where you want to get someplace where you have a physical space where you're having these really, because some great conversations are just super spontaneous, right? And so you want to have a physical space where people can come, and just like they have jam sessions in I'm looking for my calculator. In music, you can have jam session when it comes to big ideas in entrepreneurship and business or investing. So what I'm going to do is just divide 6,000 minutes, which is 100 hours, by 160 days, and that's 37 minutes, right? So literally, let's call it 38. All right, or let's bump it up to 40. So if you recorded 40 minutes of content 160 days a year, right? Now, are you talking 38 minutes a day? Yes. If you're doing anything productive, you are talking to a client. Let's say let's divide 38 or 40 by 10. All right. Are you spending 10 minutes a day talking to your vendors? Are you spending 10 minutes a day talking to client prospects? Are you spending 10 minutes a day talking to employees or people on your team? Are you spending 10 minutes a day talking to, let's say, somebody who has some traffic and you want to do a partner, some kind of visibility or traffic partnership? Are you spending 10 minutes a day talking to one of these four types of people? You should be. First of all, if you're not, that's the problem right there, right? So if you're just spending 20 minutes a day, twice a day, having conversations with those types of people I just laid out, or if you're spending 10 minutes a day with those four types of people, that's your 40 minutes of content right there. That's your 40 minutes of creating your digital content assets. And then the step after the record button is to save it in appropriate place, appropriate digital content asset library, right? Because social media is not a database. Shout out to my friend in Bonsko from Israel who said that. She's like, yeah, social media is not a database. It's not a database of contacts. It's not a database of content. So people unknowingly or they think that social media is a database, but it's not. It's not even a database that you own. And I'm just loving the color of this logo, by the way. So the whole point is step one is just hitting the record button on or off. And step two is making sure it's saved in the appropriate place. And then you can go about using that content to monetize it in different ways. So I think I want this video to be 15 minutes and we're at like 14 minutes. So let me just think through some other ideas that I want to talk to you about. So I'm going through this book, incredible book, Output-Based Thinking. And one of the things they talk about is that there's 6 types of, let me see if I can get it, 6 types of output, right? Those 6 types are thing, status, behavior, decision, solutions, relationships. And every day you want to ask yourself, okay, what output did I produce? Did I produce a thing? Example, this video will be a thing that I produced, a measurable, quantifiable digital content asset, a status, all right? A status could be, let's just say you run a facilities management company and you're tasked with cleaning, your team is tasked with cleaning the rooms of high-end hotels, okay? And the status goes from unclean to clean, all right? That's a status. Behavior, all right? Let's just say the behavior that you want to change is more production and distribution of your content. So let's say you might run a social media management company and you're only publishing one piece of content a day, and you want people to do more work so that they hit publish. The behavior that you're changing is hitting publish more often on the digital content distribution. A decision. Everybody has some things that they want to change in their life if they're growing. Uh, so let's just say you have two potential options that you're choosing from, and you have to make the choice. Another word for decision is choice selection. You have to decide which one of those two choices you're going to make. The solution. You have something broken, you have a problem, you want to fix it, a relationship. Like ideally every day you want, if you're not growing, change is inevitable, right? There's no such thing as a constant in nature. So change is either happening positive or negative. Positive change is called growth, negative change is called decay. So every day you are changing, and you're either changing in the positive direction, growth, or negative direction, decay. So I like to think about my relationships growing every day. Either the pre-existing relationships are growing because you're doing behavior that strengthens the relationship. In other words, you're growing um, together or apart, or they're growing in terms of quantity, right? You're reaching out to somebody that shares your values, interests, goals, and standards, and you're building a connection. So that's how I think about things. And again, it's just if you did nothing but, let's say, every time you sit down to have like your main meal of the day, you just hit the record button and you talk about what you have been doing, what you have been reading about, what you because action and like knowledge, the application of the soaking in of knowledge, not necessarily through books, but through audio or video, is how you get more stuff in your head. A lot of people don't have anything to talk about because they don't have anything interesting in their head, or they're not doing anything that's interesting. So if you want to have plenty to talk about, have a lot more than other people going in your head, or do a lot more, and then just talk about like what you've done. You know, probably the a couple of levels down from that, and so you talk about what you're going to do. But most that's just super common. Um, Credibility is when you talk about what you've done and not what you're going to do, right? So I hope that you found this valuable. I'm going to stop for my delicious Georgia meal, and this is Shola. Take care and take action.